I paid half his rent the year he took a risk to jump into tech sales. I sat in the front row at his awards dinners, clapping while his boss called him the future of the company. I edited his presentations, ironed his shirts, and listened to him practice pitches at midnight. I introduced him to my best friend because I trusted them both with my whole life. He joked he'd never date her because she was too much like a sister. 6 months later, I opened his phone and watched a year of my relationship scroll by in messages that weren't mine. He'd cheated with her in my apartment, on my couch, while I was working late shifts to support us. He thought his job made him untouchable. So I didn't cry, I didn't scream, and I didn't beg him to stay. I just forwarded every one of his texts to the one person who could blow up the world he actually cared about, his boss's wife. My name is Lily. I'm 29 and I live in Dallas, in a one-bedroom apartment that smells like coffee and dog hair. I'm a night shift nurse at a big hospital, 12 hours on my feet, 6 patients at a time. Not enough time to pee. It's exhausting and messy and I love it. When I met Ben, my ex, 3 years ago, I thought I'd finally met someone who understood that kind of grind. He was 27 then, working in pharmaceutical sales. The kind of guy who wore suits that fit a little too well and carried his confidence like a cologne. We met at a charity 5K my hospital sponsored. I'd volunteered at the first aid tent. He'd been there schmoozing doctors and handing out branded water bottles. You look like the only person here actually saving lives, he said, handing me one. And you look like the only person here who ironed at 6 a.m. I shot back. He laughed. We went for coffee after the race. Coffee turned into drinks the next week. Fast forward 6 months, and we were spending most nights at each other's places, trading stories about patients and clients and bosses who didn't get it. Ben loved talking about his job. I'm this close to being on Scott's level, he'd say, referring to his regional manager. Once I'm there, we're talking 6 figures easy. House in the suburbs, couple of kids. Maybe you cut back to part-time. I'd half laugh, half choke on my beer. Maybe I don't want the suburbs, I'd say. Maybe I like my weird nurse hours. Sure, he'd say, kissing my forehead. We'll figure it out. Point is, we'll be set. He said we a lot. It sounded like security. My best friend, Hannah, was there from the beginning. We'd met in college, her in journalism, me in pre-nursing, and stuck together through bad boyfriends, worse roommates, and the general chaos of our 20s. When I started seeing Ben, she grilled him like an overprotective older sister. If you hurt her, she told him the first time we all had dinner together, I know where you work and I could definitely pitch a story about evil pharma brothers. He laughed, charmed. Note to self, never cross Hannah, he said, raising his glass. Got it. They clicked in that easy way charismatic people do. They traded movie quotes and war stories from their jobs, her about nightmare editors, him about nightmare doctors. Sometimes I'd just sit back and watch them bounce off each other, feeling weirdly proud of the little trio we created. You have the best people, Ben said once, slinging his arm around my shoulders after Hannah left our place at midnight. You're like glue.
I heard it as a compliment then.
I didn't realize glue can also be something people take for granted until it's gone. When my lease was up after a year, moving in together seemed like the obvious next step. Ben's place was a cramped one-bedroom near downtown. Mine was slightly bigger, but farther from his client territory. We should get somewhere nicer, he said, scrolling through apartment listings on his phone. Split the rent, level up. It'll be good for both our sanity. Can we afford nicer? I asked, thinking about my nurse's salary and my lingering student loans. Yes, he said, without hesitation. My commissions are finally solid. And with your steady income, we're golden. We're not poor students anymore, Lil. We ended up in a 2-bedroom in a newish complex with a pool and a gym we pretended we'd use. On paper, the split was fair. I paid a little less than half the rent. He covered the Wi-Fi and some utilities. In practice, lines blurred. When he had a slow quarter, I quietly picked up the slack. Extra shifts, more groceries. I'll get you next time. Hanging in the air like a broken promise. It's all ours anyway, he'd say, kissing the top of my head when I winced at my bank app. We're building something together. Hannah was at our place at least twice a week. She'd swing by after a late assignment, collapse on our couch, and tell us about the latest chaos at her magazine. Sometimes it felt like being in a sitcom, me in scrubs, Ben loosening his tie, Hannah waving takeout menus. When she joked about getting her own drawer in our bathroom, I laughed. "You practically live here already," I said. "We should start charging you rent." She grinned. "You couldn't afford me," she said. "I come with drama and too many houseplants." If there was anything weird between her and Ben, then I didn't see it. If there were glances that lasted a beat too long, I filed them under "they're my two favorite people. Of course they get along." Looking back, there were signs. The night Ben got his first big bonus, we went out for dinner. Hannah joined us halfway through to toast. They got drunker than I did. On the ride home, they sang along to some terrible pop song in the Uber, shoulders bumping, inside jokes flying. "You guys are cute," the driver said, glancing in the rearview mirror. "We're not together," Hannah laughed. "We just share a favorite person."
She squeezed my hand.
I smiled, warmed, oblivious. Another time, I came home from a double shift to find them on the couch, heads close over his laptop, talking in low voices. "What's up?" I asked, dropping my bag. Hannah jumped a little. "Helping Ben with a pitch deck," she said. He needed a headline that didn't sound like a robot wrote it. "Journalism degree finally paying off," Ben added. "You have very smart friends, in case you haven't noticed." I shrugged off a twinge of something and chalked it up to jealousy over their creative careers versus my charting. There were other twinges. Texts from Ben that said he was grabbing a drink with a coworker that Hannah later mentioned being at. Inside jokes I wasn't part of. A lingering hug I caught in the hallway once when she was leaving and I was coming in, both of them pulling back a fraction too slowly. Each time, I explained it away. "They're my two favorite people. They're bound to be close. Don't be that girlfriend. Trust is everything." I trusted him. I trusted her more. The night it all broke open was a Tuesday. I'd picked up an extra shift on days because a coworker's kid had the flu. I texted Ben in the afternoon. "Me, last-minute day shift. Home by 6. You and Hannah want pasta night?"
Ben, yes.
"We'll be here." The "we" didn't register then. I stopped at the grocery store on the way home, grabbed ingredients for carbonara, and imagined a cozy evening, wine, carbs, maybe a bad horror movie. When I walked into the apartment around 6:15, the lights were off. Ben's shoes were by the door. Hannah's sneakers were on the mat. "Honey," I called. "I brought bacon." No answer. Our dog, Murphy, trotted up, tail wagging, then darted back toward the hallway, looking over his shoulder like he wanted me to follow. I did. Our bedroom door was half closed. I pushed it open with my foot, balancing grocery bags. For a second, my brain didn't process.
Skin. Hair.
The curve of Hannah's shoulder. Ben's hand where it should never have been. They froze. It was almost comical, the synchronized way their heads snapped toward me. "Lil," Ben started, scrambling for the sheet. Hannah's mouth opened, then closed. Her face had gone completely white. I set the grocery bags down carefully, like they were full of explosives. Murphy whined. The sound that came out of me wasn't a scream. It was a quiet, almost conversational sentence I didn't recognize as mine until I heard it. "Well," I said. "That explains a lot." Ben was the first to try to fill the silence. "It's not what it looks like," he blurted, clutching the sheet to his waist like modesty was salvageable. Hannah actually flinched at that. "Don't insult her," she snapped at him, voice hoarse. Then she looked at me. "Lily, How long?" I asked. My voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm I use when I'm telling a patient a hard truth. Ben swallowed. "It just happened," he said. "Tonight. We were drinking, talking about work, and—"
"How
long?" I repeated, eyes on Hannah. She stared at the wall behind me for a beat, then met my gaze. 3 months, she whispered. The number hit harder than any dramatic confession could have. 3 months of girls' nights she'd bailed on. 3 months of Ben being too tired when I came home late. 3 months of me picking up extra shifts so he could focus on hitting his numbers, while he apparently focused on my best friend in our bed. "Okay," I said. Ben scrambled, words tripping over each other. It didn't mean anything, he said. We were just confused. You've been so busy and you and I have been a little off and Hannah and we got close. But I love you. This was a mistake. A 3-month-long mistake?
I asked.
We were going to stop, Hannah said quickly.
We talked about it.
We said we'd end it before you ever found out. That was the plan?
I asked.
To keep lying until you were finished? She flinched again. I'm sorry, she said. Tears were spilling down her face now. I am so sorry. I'm a terrible friend. I hate myself. I looked at her for a long moment. You should, I said. But that's your work, not mine. Ben reached for my hand. I stepped back. Lil, please, he said. Don't throw everything away over this. We're just stupid humans. We messed up. We can fix it. We can go to therapy. I'll block her number. Whatever you want. Hannah's face crumpled at that. You're already throwing me under the bus? She whispered. We're both in this, Ben. He shot her a look that said shut up so loud he didn't need words. This is between me and Lily, he said. You should give us space. She should get dressed, I said. Then she should get out. The chill in my own voice surprised me. Hannah blinked, like she hadn't expected me to have that much steel. Can we talk later? She asked weakly. Please? Not today, I said. Maybe not ever.
Get dressed.
She nodded, clutching the sheet like a shield as she slid out of bed and gathered her clothes in silence. Ben started again as soon as she was in the bathroom. I was going to tell you, he said. I swear. I just didn't know how. I didn't want to hurt you. Didn't want to hurt me, I repeated. But you were okay using my Netflix and my electricity while you slept with my best friend in my bed. His jaw clenched. You're making it sound so calculated, he said. It wasn't.
We didn't plan this.
We were hanging out one night while you were working and we were both drunk and one thing led to another. We felt guilty. We tried to stop. But then it happened again. And again. That's not who I am, Lily. You know that. I stared at him. I thought I did, I said. He dragged his hands through his hair, pacing. Think about everything we've been through, he pleaded. The late nights, the emergencies, the way we've had each other's backs. Don't blow that up because we're flawed. You blew it up, I said. I'm just deciding what to do with the rubble. Hannah came out then, fully dressed, shoes in hand, eyes swollen. I'll give you space, she said. But please know I never meant to. You meant to, I said. Every time. You just didn't mean for me to find out. She flinched like I'd slapped her. I love you, she whispered. I know it doesn't matter now, but I do. You love the way I listen, I said. You love the way I show up. You don't love me enough not to do this. The truth of that sat in the air between us. She nodded once, like she'd expected as much, then slipped out of the room. The front door clicked a moment later. Murphy whined again, confused. Ben sank onto the edge of the bed, head in his hands. I'm so sorry, he said. I'm begging you. Give me a chance to make this right. Normally, this is where the dams would break. Where I'd sob, scream, throw things, demand explanations. Where he could tell himself my pain meant I still cared deeply enough to stay. Instead, I felt oddly detached. Like I was watching a patient code from behind glass, already knowing the outcome. No, I said. He looked up, stunned. No, he echoed. No, I repeated. I don't want to fix this. I don't want to fight for this. I don't want to sleep next to someone who can compartmentalize like that and then call it love. You're really going to end 3 years over this? He asked. Over one mistake? 3 months of mistakes. I corrected. With my best friend. In our home. While I was working nights to keep us afloat.
He scoffed.
You're a nurse, he said. You've seen people come back from worse. This isn't about whether it's medically possible, I said. It's about whether I want to. He stared at me for a long moment, then played his trump card. I will do anything, he said. I'll quit my job. We'll move. I'll block her, delete her, whatever. Don't you want to at least try therapy? Haven't I earned that?
You've earned honesty, I said.
Here it is. I don't want a life where every time you're late I wonder, Where every inside joke you share with someone sets off an alarm. Where I'm triple-checking your phone like a paranoid detective. That's not a partnership. That's a prison. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. I can't lose you and my job, he muttered. I can't. That caught my attention. Your job? I asked. He paled a little, realizing what he'd said. Scott's wife is old school, he said. She's close with a lot of us. We have barbecues, double dates. If she found out about this, she'd... He broke off, shaking his head. Doesn't matter. Point is, I need something stable while I figure everything else out. A picture began to form. Scott, his regional manager. The man whose approval Ben craved like oxygen. Scott's wife, Karen, always hovering at company events, hugging everyone, inserting herself into conversations about work-life balance. She'd once pulled me aside at a holiday party and said, "You're good for him. Keep him grounded, okay?" I'd smiled, not understanding that she was, in her way, guarding her investment in his reliability. Now, sitting on my bed with the knowledge of what he'd been doing on nights we said he was with co-workers, a quiet idea slid into place. It wasn't about revenge via public shaming. It was about showing the one person whose opinion he truly cared about, who could alter his life faster than I ever could, who he really was. I stood up. I'm going to my mom's tonight, I said. You should start looking for another place.
He stared at me.
Wait, that's it, he asked. You're just walking away? Yes, I said. I'll be back tomorrow for Murphy and some clothes. We can talk about the lease then. He laughed, disbelieving. You can't just throw me out, he said. My name's on this place too. I'm not throwing you out, I said. I'm stepping away. You can keep the apartment. Or not. I don't care. Where will you go? He asked, as if logistics might slow me down. Somewhere I'm not being lied to in my own bed, I said. I packed a bag, grabbed Murphy's leash, and walked out. In the car, my hands shook. Tears threatened. But I kept breathing, in through my nose, out through my mouth, like I tell anxious patients. At my mom's kitchen table an hour later, after Murphy had sniffed every corner and flopped down like he'd lived there his whole life, I told her everything. She listened, jaw tightening, eyes getting glossier with each detail. That boy never deserved you, she said when I finished. I always thought he loved your stability more than he loved you. I laughed, bitter and wet. I loved his ambition, I said. Maybe more than I should have. She handed me a mug of tea. Drink, she said. Then sleep. Tomorrow, we'll change your passwords and make a list. I slept surprisingly well. Grief, I realized, sometimes waits its turn when your nervous system knows you have things to do. The next morning, while my mom made pancakes she pretended were for Murphy, I scrolled through my phone. Missed calls from Ben. Texts from Hannah I didn't open. A few messages from coworkers. You okay? Want to talk? I ignored all of them for the moment and opened a different thread. Karen, Scott's wife. We'd exchanged numbers at one of the company barbecues when she'd invited me to a book club I never attended. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. This was the line. Up until now, my decisions had only affected me and Ben. Looping in someone from his work would change that. I asked myself the same question I'd asked patients when they were about to make hard choices. What outcome are you willing to live with? Could I live with Ben losing his job? Maybe. It was a risk he'd taken when he risked everything he claimed to care about. Could I live with myself if I kept silent and watched him charm his way up the ladder using the persona of solid family guy while I carried the fallout alone? Less so. I scrolled to his messages with Hannah, thumb hovering. The words were all there. Time-stamped. Geotagged. Explicit. Emotional. I didn't need to embellish anything. I took a breath and started a new message to Karen. Hi, Karen. We don't know each other well, but you once told me to let you know if Ben ever did anything to lose my trust. I didn't take you up on it then. I am now. I attached screenshots, no commentary, just raw text. You can do with this what you think is right. Lily. My thumb hovered over send. Then in one smooth motion I tapped. Message sent. Blue bubble. Read receipt off. I put the phone face down and took another sip of tea. I didn't know exactly what would happen next. I just knew two things. I hadn't cried. And for the first time since I'd walked in on them, I felt like I'd done something that matched the weight of what he'd done to me. Karen replied faster than I expected. Maybe 10 minutes after I hit send, my phone buzzed on the table. I saw her name, and, for a second, my courage wobbled. Then I reminded myself I hadn't written anything but the truth. Her message was short. "Can I call you?" I glanced at my mom, who was watching me with that look that says she's trying not to hover.
"Go ahead," she said.
"I'll take Murphy outside." She clipped on his leash and disappeared out the back door. I called. "Lily." Karen's voice was tight, like she'd been holding her breath.
"Hi," I said.
"I'm sorry to drag you into this." "You didn't drag me into anything," she said. Papers rustled in the background. I pictured her in that big kitchen I'd been in once, phone pressed between shoulder and ear.
"He did.
That boy worships Scott's approval and walks around here preaching family values. Meanwhile, he's doing this."
I didn't know what to say to that.
"I wanted you to know who he really is," I said. "Not because I want you to do anything specific. Just so you're not smiling at him at company picnics thinking he's some paragon of loyalty." She snorted. "Oh, I had my suspicions," she said. "Sales conferences, late-night client dinners that sounded an awful lot like steak and flirting. But you always looked so steadfast. I thought if you trusted him, maybe I was being paranoid." "I trusted him," I said. "And my best friend." Apparently, that was the mistake. She was quiet for a beat. "Are you safe?" she asked. "You're not still in that apartment?" "I left last night," I said. "I'm at my mom's." "Good," she said. "Listen, I can't promise what Scott will do. He's his manager, not his parent. But I can promise this. No one is going to look at him the same way at work after today." A strange mix of guilt and grim satisfaction washed over me. "I'm not trying to get him fired," I said. "I just don't want to be the only one paying for what he did." "You've already paid enough," she said. "I'll take it from here." We hung up. My mom came back in with Murphy, cheeks pink from the wind. "Well," she asked. I said slowly, "I just broke something for him that he can't unbreak." "Good," she said simply. "Maybe he'll finally feel what it's like when your foundation shakes." I spent the rest of the day doing boring, necessary things. Changing passwords. Moving my direct deposit to a new account. Calling the leasing office to ask about my options for getting off the apartment lease once it renewed. Every practical checkbox gave my hands something to do, while my heart figured out how to function in this new reality. By evening, there was still no message from Ben. No apology. No long, rambling text about how he'd messed up worse than he thought possible. Silence. I told myself that was probably good. Distance was healthy. But underneath, the wounded part of me kept poking at that blank space, wondering what it meant. The answer came the next morning. My phone buzzed at 7:30 a.m., right as I was brushing my teeth. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later, a text.
"Need to talk. Now."
The number looked familiar. I checked my contacts. Ben, work cell. I typed back. "We have nothing to talk about." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally. "You went nuclear. You sent our private business to my boss's wife? Do you have any idea what you've done?" I stared at the screen, toothbrush hanging out of my mouth. I swallowed the paste, rinsed, and took a few deep breaths before replying. Yes. That was it. One word.
He called.
I let it ring until voicemail picked up. He left a message full of anger and self-pity. "You're vindictive," he said. "You could have just left. You didn't have to try to ruin my life." Scott pulled me into his office this morning with HR. They've received concerning information about my judgment and conduct. That's my reputation. Lily. My career. I listened to the whole thing once, then deleted it. He sent another text, longer this time. "I know I screwed up with you. I was ready to own that. But going after my job? That's crossing a line. I hope you're happy when I'm unemployed." My thumbs hovered. My first impulse was to explain, to write a paragraph about natural consequences and how forwarding his own words wasn't going after him. Instead, I put my phone down and went to make coffee. My mom read my face when I walked into the kitchen. "He's raging," she guessed. "Apparently, HR wants a word," I said. "And that's somehow my fault." She shook her head. "People like him only understand two kinds of pain," she said. "The kind they inflict and the kind that finally lands on them. You didn't twist his arm to type those messages." She was right. Knowing it didn't entirely quiet the uneasy flutter in my chest, but it helped. That afternoon, Karen called again. "Quick update," she said. "Scott had a conversation with HR. They can't fire him for cheating, obviously, but they're investigating his use of company funds on those so-called client dinners." Guilt flared. "I didn't know about that part," I said. "Oh, honey," she said. "That part has been going on long before your friend entered the picture. You just gave us a name to go with the receipts." "What's going to happen?" I asked. "Worst case," she said. "He gets put on a performance plan with strict rules about travel and expenses. Best case for him, they shuffle him to a smaller territory and he loses the fast track to management. Either way, he's not the golden boy anymore." I pictured him, pacing in some fluorescent HR office, trying to spin this as a misunderstanding. Trying that half-smile that used to work on me. "How do you feel about that?" she asked gently. I paused. "Honestly," I said.
Relieved.
"Not because I want him to suffer. Because I was so tired of being the only one dealing with consequences." "That's the thing about people who get away with things," she said. "They start thinking it's their right. It's not your job to maintain that illusion." After we hung up, I took Murphy for a long walk around my mom's block. The air was crisp. My lungs burned a little in that good way. For the first time since all this exploded, I felt my body in space instead of just my mind looping through what-ifs. In the days that followed, the fallout settled. Hannah texted, called, DM'd.
"Please talk to me."
"I need to explain."
"I'm so sorry."
"You're the only family I have." I didn't respond. She sent one last message a week later. "I heard about Ben's job. I know that was you. I guess we both destroyed something we loved." I almost replied to that one. My fingers typed and erased a dozen words. Finally, I settled on none. Some silences I was learning are answers. Ben, for his part, oscillated between anger and attempts at contrition. "You ruined my shot at management. I can't believe you'd do this to someone you supposedly loved. We were good until she got in the middle. I messed up, I know that. Please, can we at least talk?" Each time, I felt less compelled to engage. He thought I'd gone nuclear. To me, it felt like finally adjusting the dials so the picture matched the sound. About a month after I moved in with my mom, my lease transfer came through. I found a small, pet-friendly apartment closer to the hospital and signed on dotted lines that only had my name. On moving day, my brother helped me lug boxes up narrow stairs while Murphy supervised. "This place suits you," he said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Feels like you." "I hope so," I said. I decorated slowly, cheap rugs, thrifted furniture, a gallery wall of photos that didn't include Ben or Hannah. There were lonely nights, absolutely. Nights when the silence felt heavy, when I reached for my phone to text Hannah about a ridiculous patient story or a meme and then remembered. Nights when an old photo would surface in my cloud storage, me, Ben, and Hannah at some concert, arms slung around each other, and a wave of grief would wash over me for a version of my life that didn't exist. But intertwined with the grief was something else, a steady, quiet sense of safety. No one in this apartment was lying to me. No one here had secret group chats I wasn't in. No one here was counting on my forgiveness like it was a renewable resource. A few months later, I ran into one of Ben's coworkers, Sam, in the hospital cafeteria. He was there visiting a relative. We did the awkward, "Oh, hey," dance. "How's it going?" he asked. "Haven't seen you at any of the company things in a while." "Single now," I said. Less need to pretend I enjoy standing around under fluorescent lights holding tiny egg rolls.
He winced.
"Yeah, I heard," he said. For what it's worth, most of us weren't shocked. About Ben, I mean. Charming only covers so much. What happened with work? I asked because curiosity is human.
He's still there, Sam said.
But they pulled him off the big accounts. Scott was not pleased. Expense audits, travel restrictions. He used to be the golden boy. Now, he's just another rep trying not to get on HR's radar. Sounds familiar, I said. Sam shrugged. Actions have consequences, he said. Took long enough for that to catch up with him somewhere. We chatted a bit more, then parted ways. Walking back to my unit, I realized something important. The satisfaction I felt wasn't about his demotion. It was about the alignment between who he really was and the way the world saw him. I didn't need him destitute or groveling. I just needed reality to stop letting him skate by on a false image. As for Hannah, I heard through mutual friends that she'd moved to another city.
New job.
New byline. Same Instagram quotes about growth and forgiving yourself. I hope for her sake she actually did some of that work.
Therapy.
Unpacking why betraying the person who'd held her hair back after parties felt like an option. But that journey isn't mine to monitor. My revenge was never about orchestrating their suffering. It was about stepping off the stage they'd built on top of me and leaving them to perform for each other. These days, my life is smaller and bigger at the same time. Smaller because there are fewer people in it. Bigger because there's so much more room for the things I actually care about. I adopted a second dog. Started a side hustle teaching CPR classes. Took a solo trip to New Mexico, something I'd always wanted to do but had put off because Ben couldn't get away. Sometimes, on night shifts, I think about the patients whose partners sit by their bedsides, holding hands, eyes red but steady. The ones who whisper, "We've been through worse. We'll get through this." I still believe in that kind of partnership. But I also believe, now, that leaving when someone shows you they're not capable of it is an act of love for yourself. If you're listening to this and you've ever found yourself clutching a phone full of proof, heart pounding, wondering if sharing it makes you crazy or vindictive, here's what I would tell you from my kitchen table with my dogs snoring at my feet. You didn't create the mess. You're just the one holding them up. You get to decide whether you use it to quietly clean up after someone who's spilled on you again and again, or whether you hand the mess back to the person who made it and to whatever systems have been rewarding them for the performance. He cheated with my best friend. I didn't cry in front of him. I didn't beg. I just forwarded his own words to the one person whose boundaries he'd never dared to cross. And then I stepped into a life where the only texts I lose sleep over are the ones from patients' families saying, "Thank you." No affair, no job, no golden boy is worth more than that.